Okay, thanks for joining us again tonight for another storm update. You know, the difference between when I worked at Channel 6 and how I work now is that you get to see me unshaven for a few days and in a hooded sweatshirt during storm coverage instead of with my sleeves rolled up. But they're basically rolled up for all intents and purposes with this storm that's getting going now pretty good in southeastern New England. For some, it's already been a really impressive storm. Wait until you see some of the snowfall totals if you haven't gotten wind of them up on the North Shore. They're incredible from earlier today. And now the real cold air is surging into Rhode Island and into part of southeastern Massachusetts. First, let's give a little overview here of what's going on. So we'll start off with sharing our screen and take a look at first some of these snowfall totals, and these come from the Weather Service, or were sent into the Weather Service. But what I want to focus in on is up there on the North Shore. Really impressive stuff. You've got 16, 18, 20 inches of snow. So Boxford, about 16 inches. I saw a report, I think out of Georgetown, or might have been out of Raleigh actually, of about 20 inches of snow. So up on the North Shore, they rarely have seen it pile up. It's been piling up more than 6 inches in Boston. And in southeastern New England, the totals aren't as impressive. I should have checked. Here in Bristol, it was 2.5 inches as of 8:30, and it's probably up about 3.5 inches or so right now. So really starting to see that snow come down at a better clip. Let's get a look at the current radar. And we have this radar available on rightweather.com. If you're not familiar with it, it is right there on the main menu, interactive radar. And you can turn all these layers on and off. But basically, you see that we're in the thick of the storm now. We've got steady snow showing up from east of, actually over Washington, D.C., all the way up through New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, southeastern Massachusetts, all seeing the snow. Temperatures are phenomenally cold for a snowstorm in New England. It's not often that we see it this cold during a snowstorm, and it's going to stay very cold overnight. So if you already have a temperature down around 5 degrees in the northern part of Rhode Island, you'll be 5 or colder for the remainder of this storm. It looks like all this area is going to come up over southeastern New England over the next, say, 8 hours or so. So until about 6 o'clock in the morning. Then we'll get into some of the lighter stuff after that before it tapers off around mid-morning. As far as the snowfall projections go, this is our map, and we tweaked it a little bit, but we're sticking with it. Generally 7 to 11 inches of fluffy, dry snow in Rhode Island. Most of Connecticut, if we're looking for a snow hole, it might be there as you get up into parts of central Connecticut and into the valley of the Pioneer Valley of Massachusetts. And as you look to the east and north, well, 24, more than 24 likely. There'll be some crazy totals coming out of the North Shore, but for the most part, generally 11 to 15 inches. Again, of pretty fluffy snow, although we think it will be fluffier as you get into Rhode Island compared with the southeastern Massachusetts, because it is colder in Rhode Island. Check this out. We'll take a look at the temperature right now. We've got a really interesting situation taking place. We'll let this load back up here. And this was just pointed out to me, just how stark that contrast is. 15 degrees right now on one side of 24 in Taunton. Go to the other side of 24, and it's 26 degrees. So wild coastal front set up right now, and you see it stretches basically right up Route 24 and all the way down. It's almost like that dividing line. Believe me, it's Route 24 itself has nothing to do with it, but it's really, really cool. You notice the wind direction change, and basically it's to the west of that coastal front in the colder air where you look for some of the heavier snow to pile up. Now, the coastal front should continue to sag to the south and east overnight, and eventually it will make it all the way down to Buzzards Bay. So when some heavier precipitation comes in late at night, that'll be down over the southeastern part of Massachusetts. But that coastal front had set up earlier today in along the North Shore, and it was just to the west of the coastal front in the colder air where they saw the snow pile up to the tune of 15 inches in over a several-hour time span of just light and fluffy snow. Check out these temperatures in the northern part of Rhode Island. This is incredible. It's snowing. It's 4 degrees. Pasco, 4 degrees, Woonsocket. Even in Providence, 8 degrees and snowing. I cannot recall many times at all when it snowed with temperatures in the single digits, or at least when we had a snowstorm where the temperatures were widespread in the single digits to low teens. It's down to 12 now here in Bristol, and even down to the south coast of Rhode Island, the temperature is down into the mid-teens in many places. See 13 South Kingstown still hanging on. There's the coastal front right in there. So Portsmouth 13, Middletown 16. Across the way, though, in Little Compton, it's still 29 degrees. Again, this cold air will continue to surge and seep slowly south and east overnight. And these areas in southeastern Massachusetts will eventually get very cold. All right, let's try to answer some questions here that have been coming in. I've gotten plenty of them. And we'll go through them and try to answer them in the next 10 minutes or so. So let's see what we have. Let's get rid of our screen share. And how long will we see the 0-degree temperatures? We'll combine that with another question that says, heck with the snow, Fred. When does the temperature bottom out? And then, hi, Fred. Where there's one about sunshine and any kind of melting. When does it end, and what will the temps be like tomorrow? Will there be any melting? All right. Well, let's go to the maps and see what we're looking at as far as temperatures go. Tomorrow, here's a look at maximum temperatures potentially for for tomorrow, and that's around 15 to 17 degrees. It's 1 in the afternoon. Now, it'll still be windy at that point, so it'll feel more like 0 or slightly below 0. Not the best day to be out there cleaning snow. Not the best day to be out there sledding, especially in the morning when it'll be even colder than that. And then by late in the day, it's going to get colder as this really cold air up over the western part of Massachusetts and northern New England surges back in, and skies will clear somewhat tomorrow night. The wind will relax with snowpack in place. You can expect that temperature to drop to levels that haven't been seen for at least a couple of years and maybe longer than that. So to answer the question, as far as tomorrow goes, no, melting's probably not what's going to happen tomorrow. And then by late tomorrow night, this is just some of the newest information coming in. You can see that the temperature, you may not be able to see it, but I can tell you that's a -3 at TF Green Airport, -5 up in Smithfield, about -6 in Boston. That would be the coldest weather that has been seen in southeastern New England since 2004, January of 2004. So it's been a long time. As far as record-breaking cold, well, on January 4th in the morning, your low temperatures are somewhere around that, and the records for January 4th are very, very cold. Providence was 9 below back in 1981. Boston was 4 below back in 81, a pretty decent chance of reaching that in Boston and breaking that record. Hartford 7 below will be in that neighborhood, and Worcester 8 below also in the neighborhood. So the Providence record probably not going to fall. The rest of them may, but by late tomorrow evening, records may be broken for tomorrow. Tomorrow's record low temperature in Providence is 1 degree, and I think that it will be below 0 before midnight rolls around. So late tomorrow evening, I expect the temperature to fall to 0 anyway and break that record. Boston's record for tomorrow, 1 below, set way, way back in 1904. That one probably going to fall as well. Hartford 3 below and Worcester 3 below. Also, Worcester from 1904, that is in serious jeopardy of being broken tomorrow. Okay, any chance of thunder snow somewhere tonight? I guess can't be ruled out, but I don't know that we'll ever get into anything that intense as far as snowfall rates are concerned with this storm. The center of the storm is still a decent distance offshore, and the amount of liquid equivalent that we're going to get from this storm is not off the chart. So we're not really that close to the center of this storm, but it's going to fluff up really well. So we don't expect thunder snow tonight, but I guess it can't be ruled out. I want to show you again these temperatures. It's just to look at them is amazing. 28 to 30 degrees in Bristol and Plymouth County right now, and you may or may not be able to see those. I'll take that off. Well, you can't see it any better there if I take that off, but basically I can tell you that those numbers there, they are a little bit brighter. You've got 0 there. just west of Boston. You got 1 degree right now up in Worcester, 9 degrees at TF Green Airport, 15 in Newport. Boston checking in at 4 degrees. So incredibly cold, and it's going to stay that way or get colder during the rest of the night. Fred, would it be a waste of time to start shoveling due to heavy winds? We'll combine that with another question that came in that was about the potential for power outages in the southern part of Rhode Island. And, you know, shoveling, I don't know if I'd get out there right now and shovel. It is going to be relatively light snow, very dry and fluffy, and it will be blown around quite a bit. So if you have a driveway that's susceptible to the snow getting blown back on it, if your driveway is open to the wind, especially a northerly wind, then I would probably hold off on shoveling that. But it will be windy tomorrow, so for a good chunk of the day, so it'll just get blown back on then as well. Will the wind be letting up at all tomorrow? We do anticipate the wind to die down later on in the day, so it won't be quite as windy by late tomorrow afternoon as it will be in the morning. As far as peak wind gusts go from the storm, 50, 55 mile per hour gusts possible on the Cape. You get into the Buzzards Bay area, probably between about 40 and 50 mile per hour peak gusts. Coast of Rhode Island, probably around 40 miles per hour, and in the Providence area, maybe around 35. We don't expect widespread power outages because it's a dry and fluffy snow that's not sticking to the trees. It's not the same scenario that we saw back with the blizzard in February when the initial few inches of snow really stuck to the trees, and then the winds were even stronger with that storm, much stronger, and that's what led to all the downed branches and eventually the power lines. Someone asking about whether I think there'll be more than 12 inches east of Worcester, North Grafton, Massachusetts. Yeah, that's certainly possible. And when you look at our forecast that we've had going, more or less similar to this, that's kind of the range we've been going for. Another question, are the ponds looking safe to skate on Saturday? It's a good question because I could tell you, do not ask me that question. Or if I will not answer that question because you need to check with the local authorities, check with the local police departments. There's no way I'm ever going to tell anybody that a pond is safe to skate on because I haven't gone out and checked them. So you need to check with the local authorities for that pond that people may skate on in your city or town. Just find out if that is safe. It's going to be really cold, so it may be, but don't take mine or anyone else's word for it that it's safe until you check with the authorities. In New England, this combination of extreme cold and snow seems unusual. If that's true, then why? Well, it's very true and very unusual, and the why part of it is basically, let's zoom out here so that you can get a look at the map, and well, that's why. We've just had this connection to some Arctic air coming across from the pole, basically straight across the North Pole and straight down through Canada and into the eastern United States, or the upper Midwest, and now into the Northeast. And we talked about this. Our Right Weather Pro members will know that we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, that it was going to be a really cold pattern. And anytime you get that kind of cold, I'll say sometimes that you're playing with fire, because all you need is a little storm to form along that Arctic boundary like we're seeing right now, and it blows up into a bigger storm when it hits the Atlantic Ocean, and you end up with a blizzard or a near blizzard in southern New England. This is definitely some cold weather. The last cold snowstorm that was sort of like this that I can remember was 2005. It ended up being a bigger storm because it tracked closer to southern New England and also hung around a little bit longer than this one will, but it wasn't quite as cold as this storm. So what's happening here is that you have a storm that's scooting along like this and moving progressively off to the northeast at the same time, just perfectly lined up with this Arctic air moving in. So aside from southeastern Massachusetts, where these temperatures will be falling later on, you've got a situation where the Arctic air is basically allowed to come in at the same time that the snow is overspreading southern New England. And if the storm were closer to us, then all this mild air that you see right in here, or relatively mild air, I should say, would be most likely kept into Rhode Island and southeastern Connecticut anyway, and back up into a good chunk of Massachusetts, including Boston. So it's just a perfect setup where the Arctic air comes in, but the storm is just close enough to southern New England that it allows for the snow to fall in that Arctic air, and you end up with the champagne powder kind of snow that we're seeing out there right now, as opposed to the typical 10-to-1 ratio snow that we get a lot of the time in southern New England. So the ratio with this snow is more along the lines of probably going to be 12 to 15 to 1 out in southeastern Massachusetts, and maybe 14 to 17 to 1 as you get back into Rhode Island. So when you look at these snowfall maps that we've been showing on the live blog, these are computer projections. Notice that they're, let's see if I can make this a little bit easier for you to see, 10-to-1 liquid ratio. So the model is based off a 10-to-1 liquid ratio. In here, Rhode Island, interior southeastern Massachusetts, we expect a 15-16-to-1 ratio. So this comes out to about 5 inches of snow at 10-to-1, 5 to 6 inches of snow at 10-to-1, which ends up being more along the lines of about 8 inches of snow, and that's on top of the inch or two that we saw earlier. So that's why our forecast is for 7 to 11. This was a model run that was basically from 7 p.m. rather to 7 a.m. And out here in southeastern Massachusetts, your ratios are probably, as we said, about 12 to 15 to 1, and your 10-to-1 snowfall totals are somewhere between about 6 and 9 inches in southeastern Massachusetts. So you do the math there, and you end up with generally about an 8 to a 12 or 13-inch snowfall, which is what our forecast is basically calling for in that part of southern New England. So it's a pretty volatile situation. I guess one thing to be thankful for is that it's not going to be a real long-lived storm, the main event part of it. It's been dragged out because of the warm-up act, which wasn't really that much in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and southeastern Mass, but turned out to be a big hit up on the North Shore, and that's why they'll have the jackpot up there. My husband has to go to work for 7 a.m., leaves at 6 a.m. to commute from Taunton to Fairhaven. Okay, will the snow still be heavy at that time? Well, not speaking so much specifically about that particular case, but in general, we're expecting the snow to start to wind down 6, 7 o'clock in the morning in Rhode Island, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning in southeastern Mass. At least the heavier accumulating snow. There'll be snow blowing around. It'll be very, very cold, single digits in Rhode Island, single digits to low teens in southeastern Massachusetts. So the snow may not be cranking at that point, but it will still be difficult travel because it'll be so cold and it will be so windy. Are you expecting damaging winds in south coastal Rhode Island? We kind of addressed that. We don't expect widespread damage from this storm. Will the precipitation that goes all the way back to North Carolina really miss us and the storm will end by morning, or could it tickle to the northwest? Well, we'll go back to the radar here and get a look at it. And the models have been pretty consistent in showing that this basically comes through and then ends by about 6 to 8 o'clock in the morning, at least the heavier stuff right in here. So we feel pretty confident that that will still be the case. We haven't seen any indications that it would not be the case. The storm is basically on track and is pretty well modeled at this point, and we expect things to start winding down at that point. So it's not a situation where the storm is going to get hung up here east of Cape Cod and sit and spin around like some of the epic snowstorms in southern New England history. This one will keep moving right along, and while it will be epic for a few, it won't be quite as memorable for people in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and most of southeastern Massachusetts, except for the fact that it's such an incredibly cold storm, and it will be followed by such a bitter chill tomorrow during the day and tomorrow night. Let me just check Twitter here. I heard my Twitter feed going off a little bit there. The question was, Fred, many times it seems that when we have winter that drags Arctic air down, the trend continues. Do you think it will continue? Well, cold breeds cold, and especially when it's going over snowpack. So we we projected a winter with near normal temperature. Now we had a little bit colder than normal December, about a degree colder than normal. Obviously, off to a cold start in January. It looks like the next storm that's heading our way will be mainly rain in southern New England, southeastern New England, when that comes on Monday. It should be interesting to see if there's any shift to the south and east in that track, because sometimes the models can have a hard time dealing with the well entrenched, very cold weather over the snowpack that'll be in the northeastern United States. So I would not be surprised if that storm slides a little bit farther south and east than is currently being projected. This is the one for Monday, which would be a colder scenario, but probably just a colder rain for Rhode Island and for southeastern Massachusetts. You might get into some icing back into the Berkshires, and up into northern New England, you might be able to pick up some snow from that one. So we'll see how that plays out. And looking down the road farther, we see a lot of variability coming during the month of January. After that storm departs, another very cold shot moves into New England. It will be record-breaking, possibly all-time record-breaking cold in the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and western Mid-Atlantic. So the next cold shot that comes in the middle of next week is going to be centered right here over the middle of the country, as opposed to here in New England, where we're getting this as a direct cold shot tomorrow night with a northerly wind in the forecast. So overall, cold tends to breed cold, and we'll see if that trend continues. I think that if we end up with a near normal winter temperature-wise, a lot of people will think it's been a cold winter because we've had so many warm winters in recent memory in the last couple of decades. So we're still anticipating plenty of cold weather to be coming down the pike in the next couple of months. Fred, is it safe to walk the dog tomorrow morning at sunrise wearing appropriate clothing, of course? You or the dog? Who's going to have that clothing on? You may both need it tomorrow. Yeah, it's probably okay to get out there and walk the dog. Temperatures in the single digits tomorrow morning. You can see now that it's down to 0 at this point in Worcester. It's down to 0 there in just west of Boston right now, and you get up to Lawrence, Mass, and it's 1 degree right now. It looks like that's around Bedford, 0. So it's going to be really cold. It's going to be really windy. If you can wait until late in the morning to walk the dog, that's better. If the dog needs to go out, just make it quick. In the kind of conditions that we'll see tomorrow morning, you can get frostbite in about 30 minutes. You have to remember that weather is all relative. This is the kind of cold that's commonplace up in northern New England. So, and they spend plenty of time outside, and this is the kind of cold that would be warm in this part of the country, Minnesota and up in Wisconsin. Incidentally, there's Green Bay on the map. Wanted to point out that it looks like it's going to be below 0 for the Packers and 49ers game on Sunday afternoon, and the wind chill may be 15 to about 30 below 0 with the temperature of about 5, possibly as cold as 10 below 0. So it's all relative. There will be people at that game playing football. There will be people in the stands that'll be watching it. So I think to be able to go out and walk the dog tomorrow in single-digit weather with the wind chill that'll be slightly below 0, maybe 10 below, should be okay. All right, let me just check. Had a couple more things come across my screen here. I'll check those out and see if there are questions that can be answered. Someone did give me DEM's 24-hour ice safety hotline. So if you want to jot this down, type it into your computer, 401-222-2632. So thanks, Steve, for that. 401-222-2632. That's your ice safety hotline. So just to summarize, this is what we're expecting as far as snowfall goes from this storm. Might even wipe out that 4 to 7. We try to get pretty cute with these maps sometimes. Our initial projection issued to Right Weather Pro members had this pink area extended back a little bit farther to the west, and it was for 12 to 18 inches. And this was issued on Monday. And then we had 6 to 12 for the rest of southern New England. And in hindsight, maybe we should have just rolled with that the whole way along. We did tweak it. We lowered it at one point, and it kind of came back up since then. But The bottom line is this is a high-end moderate storm as far as snowfall is concerned, and a major storm for parts of eastern Massachusetts. Should be winding down tomorrow morning. Brutal cold weather is in the forecast for tomorrow night. The wind will be relaxing, but the temperature will be falling below zero just about everywhere in southern New England, possibly as cold as 5 or 6 below zero in the Providence area and up in Boston, and maybe as cold as 8 or 9 below zero as you get up to Worcester. We'll continue to live blog the storm this evening. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the comment section on the live blog, and we will be getting some quick rest late tonight and then be back at it again tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight.